Hello, friends. Welcome to our Thinking Thursday. We have been meeting for almost 2 years now, and we are so delighted to have today with us Shri Radhika Sharmaji, giving us a talk on abortion, modern and Vedic perspectives. Yachna, would you please do the honors of introducing Radhika ji? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So, formally, introduction goes like this. Sri Radhika Sharma ji has been an ardent Bhakti yoga practitioner for 28 years, and she was initiated into it in 1995. She is a long-time member of International Society for Krishna Consciousness, which is popularly known as ISKCON, and I'm sure everyone knows about it. It's all about Krishna and spirituality. So she was born and raised in Malaysia, and she is a qualified IT professional, has worked in several multinational companies in Hong Kong and abroad. So she has quite a lot of experience in the corporate world. And before opting out of it in 2024, after opting out from in 2024, she started, 2004, to run her own company, Ayur Yoga International, along with her husband, Vinod Sharma ji, which provided Ayurveda and yoga-related health services to the people in Hong Kong and the world around. So she's a resident of Hong Kong since past 28 years, and she's passionate about sharing the sublime and timeless wisdom of Vedas and Sanatan Dharma with everyone, as she firmly believes that wisdom of our ancient Shastras is more needed in the world today than ever before. Currently, she's pursuing her Bhakti Shastri qualifications in theology, and along with her husband, Vinod Sharma ji, who is also a long-time member of ISKCON and practitioner of Bhakti Yoga and Ayurveda doctor also. Sri Radhika ji facilitates many programs and discussions on Sanatan Dharma and Vedic culture in Hong Kong in an effort to raise awareness, especially amongst Indians, about the rich cultural heritage of India and inspire more people to explore and practice our ancient Vedic wisdom in order to benefit on all levels, physical, mental, and emotional and spiritual also. So this was the formal introduction of Radhika ji, but I think we all know her as she is our esteemed and regular member of Thinking Thursday meetings. And the topic she is going to talk about is quite a sensitive one. We all are eager to hear on it. Abortion, which is as the word goes, it brings a lot of emotions all together at once, of grief, of sadness, of anxiety, depression, and maybe sometimes anger as well. So let's hear from her what she has to say from both the perspectives, the Vedic as well as the modern perspectives, which is very important to listen to. And I'm sure it's going to be a very enriching session. And welcome, Radhika ji. Welcome. And all ears to you. Let's hear it from you now. Over to you.
Thank you, Yachna ji. Thank you for your very kind words. Thank you, everyone, for making time to be here this evening. And indeed, as Yachna ji said, this topic today on abortion is quite a controversial, sensitive one. And obviously, there's so much that can be discussed on this topic. I'm going to touch on a few points today, specifically, about how abortion is viewed in society today in the modern world. And then we will look at what our Shastras or the Vedic wisdom says about abortion, how abortion is viewed in Vedic culture. And then we'll discuss what is the root cause or the underlying reason behind the increasing number of abortion cases that we see in the world today. So this will be kind of in a nutshell what we're going to talk about. And then, of course, we'll open it up for discussion. So before I begin, I would just like to chant and offer my pranams and my prayers to my spiritual master. So just give me a couple of minutes, please. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Tamal Krishna Goswami Namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasa Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hey, Hare Krishna, everyone, once again. So,
Hare Krishna.
So yes, as we said, the topic today is on abortion. And just a quick definition of the word abortion is that it is the act of eliminating the fetus in the womb during the first few months of pregnancy. Yes, and as I said earlier, we're going to look at this topic from a few different perspectives today, because abortion is one of today's most disturbing and hotly debated issues, whether it is right or wrong. And there are proponents for both sides. There are those who argue that abortion is every woman's right. So they are pro-choice. They say that every woman should have the choice of being able to perform abortion if she wants to. And then there are, of course, the critics, those who are against abortion, who are pro-life. They say that, the fetus has life, and just as the woman has rights, so does the child in the womb. So there are proponents for both sides. And even till today, this debate is still going on. You may have noticed, or you may have heard in the news recently, that in the US, the Supreme Court recently, a few months ago, ruled against abortion, generally saying that for many years it was legal in the States, but then the Supreme Court now has ruled that it is illegal. Abortion is not legal, and that is being challenged by many Americans, many states. They don't want to follow the Supreme Court. They want to have their own individual rules for each state. So clearly this shows that even until today, it is a very hotly debated topic, not just in the US, but all around the world, because it's a very fundamental question. But I think at the heart of this controversy lies one crucial question, one very crucial question. And that question is, when does life begin in the womb? When does life begin in the womb? Does the fetus in the womb have life, or is it just a lump of flesh? This is a fundamental question behind this controversy and this debate going on. So ironically, in spite of so much progress in, economics, education, technology, and so on, even those who are supposed to be very learned and who are supposed to be leaders of the world, they are unable to answer this basic question. They can't answer this basic question of when life actually begins in the womb. In many countries around the world, abortion is illegal. Abortion is illegal, and therefore many women are resorting to having abortions illegally, right? At great risk to their own lives, to their own health, risking complications, infections, etc. But it's going on. And perhaps because of that, in many years ago, in 1973, the US Supreme Court ruled that women could legally have an abortion during the first 3 months of pregnancy. During the first 3 months of pregnancy, it was ruled legal by the US Supreme Court for women to have abortion. Now, although there was no relevant evidence or, to back up their claim, the Supreme Court justices, they decided that the element of life does not enter the fetus until the 3rd month of pregnancy. Okay, so this was their reasoning behind it, that for the first 3 months, there's no life in the fetus, and therefore it is legal to do the abortion. Now, there's no real evidence to say that only in the 3rd month of pregnancy there's life in the fetus, but that's the basis that was taken for this ruling. And what was the result? What was the result of this ruling? A staggering increase in the number of abortions in the US. Staggering increase in the number, from several thousand in 1973 to over 1 million in 1976, just in the space of 3 years. The numbers just skyrocketed because now abortion was legal. So we can imagine how many abortions were being performed illegally behind the scenes. So we are left with this basic question: when does life begin within the womb? Now, according to modern scientific theory, life begins when various chemical reactions in the body of the developing fetus takes place. When there are certain chemicals that interact in the fetus, then that produces the life force or the consciousness within the fetus. And until those chemical reactions take place, scientists say, no life is present. There's no life present in the fetus. So this viewpoint is taken a step further to conclude that up to the age of 3 months, the child within the mother's womb, is not alive, but it is simply a lump of dead matter. For the first 3 months, it's just a lump of dead matter, and only after 3 months, life begins when the chemical reactions occur. So this is the modern scientific view. And because of this view, therefore, since the body of the fetus is just developing, it doesn't have life yet in the first 3 months, therefore it's just growing like a tumor. It's just growing like a tumor, okay? And what is the harm? What is the harm if a surgeon cuts a tumor and throws it away? What's the harm? There's no harm in this, okay? So for this reason, it is viewed as a lump of flesh, and therefore those who are pro-abortion, they speak about the rights of the mother, that she has the right to decide what to do with her own body, and she should have the abortion if she wants to, because for the first 3 months, there's no life. It's just a lump of flesh. But they don't feel, for the same reason, they don't feel that the child in the womb has any rights, because it's not yet a human being. It's just a lump of flesh. This is the basic reasoning behind this basic thinking of people who are pro-abortion. They believe there is life in the fetus as yet. And also, so this is one thing, the mentality that for the first 3 months of conception, after the first 3 months of conception, there is no life. The fetus has no life. The other thing is that the other thing is about the language that is used to describe the fetus. Okay, first of all, abortion, as we were talking before we began this talk today, abortion in itself, the word abortion itself, conjures up a very drastic and very not a very nice thing. Okay, it's brutal. It's brutal, it's unpleasant, it's ugly. The word abortion itself conjures up this these emotions, stirs up these emotions and these images in our minds. So what is happening now in today's world, increasingly, a different terminology is used to more or less cover this fact, cover the fact that what is actually taking place is abortion. So instead of using the term abortion, the term pregnancy termination is used. Okay, termination of pregnancy. So now you terminate something. Okay, you can terminate so many things. You can terminate a contract. You can terminate, anything. It's a commonly used word. So now terminate pregnancy is abortion is now termed as pregnancy termination. And when the mother is having her pregnancy terminated, when she's actually going through an abortion, she never hears anything. She's never told that what's actually happening is that the child in her womb is being killed. She's never actually told this. She's desensitized to it by saying that it's just a pregnancy that's being terminated. In fact, the child in the womb is described as tissue, muscular tissue. Yeah, just like all of us, we have tissue in the body, right? Muscles and tissue in the body. So the fetus in the womb, the developing fetus, is often referred to as tissue. So the mother doesn't, she doesn't grasp the whole thing. She's not reminded of the fact that she's actually terminating a child within her womb. Rather, she hears that some tissue will be removed from her body. Just like, you would remove the appendicitis, or you would remove a tumor from your body. That's all it's made out to be. As simple as cutting off a little tumor and throwing it off. So this is the kind of language and mentality that is prevalent in today's world, in society today. A, that there's no life in the fetus for the first 3 months, and B, that it's not even referred to as a baby, as a child. It's clinically referred to as tissue, some organic tissue that's being removed. Now, what does Vedic wisdom say about this? What do our Vedas say about this? In answer to this question, when does life begin within the womb? First of all, we must first understand that we're not dealing with something gross, something that we can measure in a laboratory. The soul or the life principle is the most subtle thing in existence. We can't see it even through a powerful microscope or weigh it on a scale or anything like this. It's not tangible. Okay. In fact, our Vedas explain that the dimension of the soul is, anyone knows what's the dimension of the soul as given in our Shastras? Any idea?
No idea. No.
Okay. The dimension of the soul, the size of the soul is mentioned in our Shastras.
10,000 part of our hair, head hair.
Yes. Thank you very much, Surya Virji. Yes, thank you very much.
Haribol,
Our
thank you.
Our Shastras tell us that the size of the soul is 1/10,000. That means 1/10,000 times the tip of the hair. Now, the tip of our hair is already so tiny, but the soul is 1/10,000th the part of that tip of the hair. This is the size of the soul. So we can understand we cannot perceive it or see it through any mechanical means, any machines that we have in existence today. So it's smaller even than the atom. Atoms can be seen under a microscope, but the soul or the life force cannot be perceived under a microscope. So in other words, if we want to understand this life force, we must approach authorities that are beyond our limitations of imperfect mind and senses. We must approach a transcendental source of knowledge, and as revealed in the Vedic scriptures. Veda means knowledge, and Vedic knowledge comes from Lord Krishna and is therefore infallible. It is beyond mistakes, beyond any kind of imperfections. Now, in contrast to the modern idea that life only begins after the 3rd month of pregnancy, the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the essence of all Vedic knowledge, declares that under the supervision of the Supreme Lord, And according to the result of his previous work, the living entity or the soul dwelling within the male sperm cell enters a woman's womb to assume a particular type of body. Therefore, what this says is life in the womb begins from the point of conception, the point at which the sperm carrying the soul enters into the ovum. From that point, when conception takes place, life is already present within the fetus. Okay, not after 3 months, as is the modern popular understanding, but at the point of conception. So now, this, if we truly understand this nature of life, when it begins, then we can begin to get some understanding and resolve this whole abortion issue. Because Krishna teaches in the Bhagavad Gita, he explains the difference between the soul and the body. The body has life as long as the spirit soul is there. As soon as the soul leaves, the body loses all symptoms of consciousness. We have experience of this. Similarly, the embryo develops in the womb according to the same principle. Why does the embryo grow inside the womb? Why is it able to grow? Because of the presence of the soul. The spiritual spark is there, therefore the embryo can grow. Do we have any experience in our lives that something which has no life can grow? Do we have any experience of this? Can something grow if there's no life in it?
No, can't.
No. The only way something can grow is when there is life present within.
Okay.
So it is the same principle. To think that the fetus in the womb is growing, we know that it's growing, but to think that there's no life within that fetus is foolishness. It's just, we're just turning a blind eye to the reality. So life is already present at the time of conception, because without the soul, the fetus cannot grow. Not only, the consciousness may not be fully exhibited in the early stages of pregnancy, but the consciousness is there. Life is there. Life is present within the fetus. So it's important that we get this clear, that the soul and the life principle is present within the fetus from the time of conception, not after 3 months. So this, our Shastras tell us very clearly, and it is directly contradicting what is a popular belief in today's world. Because this whole point that for the first 3 months, there's no life, that is the window. That's why they say that during these 3 months, you can do the abortion and there's no problem. There's no killing involved. But that's not what our Shastras say. And anyone can understand that without life, the fetus cannot grow. Okay, this is just simple common sense. The other thing that our Shastras tell us is the trauma that a woman undergoes during abortion. Okay, because pregnancy is not a disease or an illness. It is a natural event, right? It's a natural occurrence. And a woman's body is programmed to nurture and sustain life. And her whole psychology changes within her body during the 9 months of pregnancy. She can feel drawn in different directions. She can feel the marvel of life, new life growing within her. She can be overwhelmed by the concerns about the health and, of the baby, what she needs to do, how she needs to act and think, what she needs to eat in order to, make sure that the child within her womb is nurtured, and how, she begins to love that child even before the baby is born, isn't it? Yeah, the loving propensity is already there as soon as the woman discovers that she's pregnant. Now, abortion is the complete opposite of what I just described. Abortion is when a mother becomes violently disconnected from the child in her womb. The mother becomes violently disconnected from the child in the womb. And this trauma, this is a genuine trauma. It's because it's an unnatural death, okay? Because there's intervention and the baby is deliberately killed. And so it violates the mother's natural instincts of nurturing and loving the child. It causes a lot of trauma for the mother because it's very unnatural. It goes against the mother's natural feelings of loving, kindness, compassion, and being the protector of the child. It goes against her natural instincts. And in this case, not only the trauma is caused by the actual act of abortion, but many women actually don't want to abort the child, but they are forced to do it, either by the husband or the family members, or, for whatever reason, they are forced to go through the abortion when they themselves don't want to. Statistics show that many women would, if they had support to raise the child or take care of the baby, they're willing to go through with the pregnancy and give birth to the child. But because there is, pressure from either family members or the husband doesn't want the child, for whatever reason, they are forced to take this drastic step of having abortions. So you can just imagine what kind of emotional and mental trauma the mother will be going through. Okay, and this is a very real experience that stays with the mother long after the abortion has taken place. Long after the actual act of abortion has taken place, the mother is still going through the agony, the psychological and emotional trauma and agony of having, killed the child in her womb. And this gives rise to mental health. This gives rise to depression, to grief. And many times this was, in the past, this was not recognized by medical science. Okay, but now they're beginning to understand that the trauma of abortion is by itself an illness by itself, right? So this is something that has now been scientifically accepted, that women are, those who go through abortion, it has been shown that there's a higher risk of suicide among women like this. And they're more depressive, they suffer more from psychosis, and then there are many cases of women becoming emotionally numb. It's as though they can't feel anything anymore because of the experience of abortion, the trauma they went through abortion. Okay, so these are some of the things that have already been given in our Vedic culture. That, first of all, that life begins at the time of conception, and that abortion is not natural. It is actually a violent action that really disturbs of course, it kills the child in the womb, but it also causes a lot of post-traumatic stress and a lot of health repercussions for the mother who has gone through abortion, especially if she has not done it willingly and she has been forced into, doing that act of abortion. Now, I just want to take a few moments to talk about some of the justification. In today's world, there are some reasons given for justification for abortion, right? Now, one of the main reasons for justifying abortion is that many couples, they conceive a child, but then they feel that they are not economically, or financially well off enough, independent enough to take care of the child, right? So this is one reason. They fear they don't have the financial means to raise the child properly. So this is one reason that is given for abortion. It's going on around, throughout the world. But what we forget is that our culture, our shastras tell us that when a soul comes into this world, that soul comes with its own karma, comes with its own plan for its life. That means, Krishna, a God, has made already the arrangements for each and every soul that comes into this world. It's not that we are raising the child. We are not raising the child. The child comes into this world with its own, future already planned, with its own karma, everything already planned out by the divine. That child comes into this world. We are simply the instruments. We are simply the instruments to help this child in this journey, in this lifetime, to help this soul in this journey. Okay, but we make this mistake of thinking, because of our ignorance or because of our arrogance, we think we are doing everything, but we are not. Okay, so this reason that many couples have, that they can't raise the child because of financial constraints, it actually shows ignorance, a lack of understanding. So this is not really a valid reason for aborting a child, but this is something that is very common. It's a very common reason in the world today for aborting a child, the socioeconomic reason. Another reason is people say that, okay, there's, overpopulation, there's already too many, people on the planet, I don't want to add to it. And there's, there's the shortages of food, shortage of this and that and everything. So I don't want to bring another child into the world. But the reality is that if the reason is overpopulation, the reality is that the world, actually, there's no shortage of food or anything in the world. Krishna has provided for everyone. Okay, the only problem in the world today is the problem is unequal distribution of the food that's available. That's the problem. Not that there's a lack of food, but the distribution of the food is unequal. Some countries, some societies have more food than they need, that so much so that they throw away food, right? Like in Hong Kong. Okay, food wastage in Hong Kong is one of the biggest in the world, and now the government is trying to do something to collect this food waste and process it into something useful. But food waste in affluent societies, there's so much food that is wasted. And then we find that in other poorer countries, there's not enough food for the citizens. So there's no lack of food. There's no lack of resources for everyone in the world. The problem is the unequal distribution. And this is what the leaders of the world need to address. Not that they promote, abortion for the sake of controlling population in the country. I won't name any names, but we know there are countries in the world where you're not allowed to have more than a certain number of children. Okay, so this is their way of controlling the population. So if if it happens that the parents get pregnant, the couple gets pregnant, they have to abort. They have to abort by law. They have to abort because they're not allowed to have more than a certain number of children. So this is one reason that's overpopulation, that there's not enough resources for everybody. But that's not true. Okay, the problem is that the resources are not distributed equally. Besides, one can argue that if the problem is overpopulation, if overpopulation is one of the reasons for abortion, then why don't, instead of murdering the children, why don't we kill all the old people? Why don't we kill all the people who are sick and who are not contributing to society, or those who are, thieves and robbers and who create disturbance in society? Why don't we kill them in order to control the population? We will not do that, right? We will not do that because we recognize that they have a right to live, no matter what their character may be. But when it comes to these unborn children, we feel that they don't have the same rights, and we don't think twice about justifying abortion in this way. Now, another perhaps more difficult decision when it comes to abortion is pregnancy resulting from rape. Yeah, this is not something that is pleasant to talk about, but we know it is a reality. Okay, there are many pregnancies that are that result because of rape. So sometimes the women justify, or society justifies, that in such cases, then it's okay to abort the child. But is it really? I mean, of course, it's tragic for a woman to conceive a child in that way, okay? But when we stop to think about it, what is the reason for terminating, for going through the abortion? What is the reason? It is basically to protect yourself from shame, from embarrassment, from humiliation in society, right? That's the basic reason generally. What will, our name will be spoiled, or, what will happen? We have to bear the repercussions, and, our reputation will go down the drain. So that's generally the reason for going through abortion. But does protecting your name and your reputation justify killing another soul, taking the life of another soul? This is the question we need to ask ourselves. Okay, no matter what we have had to go through, does it justify the fact that we are actually killing another soul, just in order to protect our shame or our humiliation? Besides, the other thing to consider is that besides, the reality is that the demand for adoption around the world is very high, because on average, statistics show that on average, 20% of married couples are infertile. 20%. And out of these 20%, more than 5%, they can't even be helped medically. So 5% of the world population, that's a lot. That corresponds to millions of childless couples around the world who would gladly adopt children. So even if it's a case where, you have an unwanted pregnancy, but there's no real reason to abort the child, when the child can be given up for adoption and can be given a better life, even if, the birth mother cannot take care. So I'm just touching on a few different, reasons that are given in the world today to justify abortion. Okay, this is what we see in society today. But what does Vedic wisdom say? Vedic wisdom goes further. Of course, Vedic wisdom contradicts all the reasons I gave just now. Okay. Additionally, Vedic wisdom tells us about the law of karma. Okay. The law of karma clearly points out that when an individual, when a soul will go into a mother's womb and when that soul will take birth is determined by divine law. Okay, it's determined by divine law. And therefore, when we try to deny the soul that opportunity to enter into a mother's womb and take birth, okay, we are going against the laws of karma. Okay, through abortion, when we deny the soul the opportunity to enter into a womb and take birth, we are going against the laws of karma. We're defying the laws of God. And as we know, the law of karma, okay, we have to experience the consequences of everything we do. Just as, Bible also says the same thing. As you sow, so shall you reap. In other words, every action has its consequences. So the Vedas also tell us that by the law of karma, anyone who destroys a developing a fetus, that means anyone who undergoes abortion, at some point, they will have to go through that same situation. They will have to take birth. They will have to go enter a woman's womb and be aborted in the process. The same thing that if someone aborts a child in the womb, that person will in the future life have to go through the same process of abortion. This is the law of karma. Okay, this is very clearly given, and there's no avoiding this. There's no avoiding this. So those who are anxious, to enjoy sexual pleasure, but they wish to avoid the responsibility of having children, need to seriously consider, okay, the severe consequences of abortion. Need to seriously consider this, because unlike man-made laws, which we can sometimes avoid or escape from, the laws of nature are strictly enforced. There's no escaping it. Now, this doesn't mean, this doesn't mean that we can abort a child in the womb and then say that, oh, this child is just suffering the results of its own karma. Okay, so maybe in a previous life, this child aborted, okay, went through the act of abortion. So now in this life, this soul has come into my womb and I'm aborting the child. That means it's just the child's karma. I'm not doing anything wrong. It's the child's karma. It is supposed to be aborted. We can't take that approach and say, use the law of karma to our own convenience. Okay, that means, in other words, what I'm saying is, I aborted my child, but then it's the child's karma, therefore I'm blameless. I have no, there's no blame on my part. Okay, that's like saying if someone is sentenced to death by hanging, okay, by the Supreme Court, let's say, if someone is sentenced to death by hanging, in 2 weeks' time, the hanging is supposed to take place. Now, suppose I say that, okay, let me kill this person now. Let me kill this person now, because anyway, this person is going to die in 2 weeks' time. He's sentenced to death by hanging. So what difference does it make if he dies now or if he dies in 2 weeks' time? Anyway, he's sentenced to death. All right. So let me kill him now itself. Will this be accepted? If I were to do that, okay, I would be punishable by law, right? It's a crime. Even though the person is supposed to die by hanging in 2 weeks' time, but if I take matters into my own hands and say that I'm going to kill the person now, thinking that anyway he's going to die in 2 weeks, that is a punishable offense, right? Yes. So in the same way, we cannot say that if I abort my child, I cannot say that, oh, the child was destined to be aborted. It was his karma anyway, so I'm blameless in this. No. When the child comes into the womb, when the child has to die or leave, is decided by higher authorities. We are not authorized to intervene through abortion and say that, okay, it is the child's karma that he's supposed to die, and therefore I am, I'm blameless. Right? So Vedic wisdom gives us knowledge about this, that the law of karma is something that most people are unaware of this. And so most people take a lot of actions without thinking about what are the consequences. Okay. Now, I just want to go a little bit into what is the real cause of the increased number of abortions in the world today. We talked a little bit about the modern view about abortions. We talked about the Vedic wisdom talking about abortions. And it very clearly says that life begins at conception, and everyone can understand this, okay, because without life, there cannot be any growth. And then we looked at some of the justification, why, in today's world, people justify the act of abortion. What I would like to speak about next is to look at what is the real cause of the increased number of abortions in the world today? Because behind this abortion crisis, there's a deeper problem. There's a deeper problem. In a sense, abortion is like the symptom, okay? The main cause, root cause in the number of, in abortions is the increase in the number of unwanted pregnancies in the world today. Right? There's an increase in the number of unwanted pregnancies in the world. And this is the reason why millions of women are resorting to aborting their unborn babies. But if we understand that the fetus is alive from the moment of conception, then how can we consider abortion as a solution to unwanted pregnancy? Abortion is not the solution, okay? The truth is that this crisis of abortion and unwanted pregnancy results from the same basic cause. And that cause is unrestricted, illicit sex life. Okay, this is what is prevalent in the world today. That, we can see that in today's world, there's, even 20, 30 years ago, there was still a structure within society. In order to have children, one would have one would enter into a commitment, a marriage, and then conceive a child, and then take responsibility for raising the child in a good way. All these things are, pretty much being thrown out of the window now in most countries, including India, including India, right? So these things are going on. There's more live-in relationships. There are more people conceiving, having children outside of wedlock. So while, sex is natural for all living beings, Vedic wisdom tells us that sexual activity must be regulated. Okay, sexual activity must be regulated. So having sex just for our own pleasure and to just enjoy our senses without any restrictions or regulations is a violation of law, of nature's law. It's a violation of God's law. And that is why, because of the high percentage of, unrestricted sex, that is, sexual activity taking place, therefore there's an increase in unwanted pregnancies. And therefore there's an increase in the number of abortion cases around the world. So we cannot look at abortion in isolation. Abortion is like it's just, as I said, it's like the symptom. We can't just we're having a discussion now about whether abortion is right or wrong or whatever. Okay, we can discuss this forever and ever, but we will not be touching the root cause of the problem, which is increased, unrestricted sexual activity in today's society. And this is what needs to be addressed. Real education is needed, to establish high values in human society, and to get society to understand how unrestricted sexual activity, all the consequences and problems that it can cause. Values such as commitment to one partner for life, having children in a responsible manner, giving them a good upbringing. These are values we need to bring back into society. It's not something new. We used to have this before. All cultures have this. I don't want to say that, unrestricted sex life is a Western mentality or ideology. No, it's even in Western culture. If you look at it 50 years ago, there was the concept of family and togetherness and everything. But, in today's world, everything is eroding. These values are eroding. And because of these values being eroded, therefore, we are talking about, instead of bringing these values back into society, we are spending our time talking about arguing whether abortions should be legalized or should be banned. This is like providing a Band-Aid solution. If you have a stomach ache, you can't put a plaster or a Band-Aid on your stomach and expect the problem to go away. No, you have to deal with the problem, underlying problem, what is causing the belly ache. Yeah. So this is the example of what we are doing today. There's so much discussion about abortion, but we are ignoring the underlying cause. Values in society are being eroded. People are giving less and less importance to the institution of marriage, family, commitment, responsible parenthood. These are the things that we need to bring back into society, in order to regulate sexual activity. And this has to come from the top to the bottom, from nations' leaders, from family members, from society at large. And we also, we can't just preach about this to others. We have to practice it in our own lives also to set the example. Otherwise, without this illicit, and unrestricted sexual activity, without regulating this, all these cases of abortion, divorce, child abuse, everything, all this is just going to increase for more and more and more as we go forward, if we don't understand and correct the underlying cause. Okay, which is we must learn to cultivate the spiritual strength in order to be able to control our senses and bring, society back to its right path. The direction that we are headed in right now is destructive. It's destructive. And we are, responsible for mass murder, basically. Mass murder, killing of, the children in the womb is infanticide. Abortion is infanticide. And the millions of abortions that take place around the world every year. And we are all either directly or indirectly responsible for this happening. So one of the underlying causes, reasons why there's a high number of abortion cases in the world today is this, because of unregulated and unrestricted sexual interaction between men and women. Again, the Vedic wisdom doesn't say that, that one should abstain from sex life. Sex life is there, it's natural, but it needs to be regulated. It needs to be practiced in a responsible way. Okay, that's what our Vedic wisdom tells us. And we can see when we go against that, we can see the result in the world today, how, how many unwanted pregnancies are there, and therefore, so how many cases of abortions are taking place. This is the direct consequence of all our values being eroded. I also want to touch on a very important point. Why is abortion? So we looked at the reason, underlying reason of abortion, which is increased unrestricted sexual activity. But I also want to ask this question: why is abortion so accepted? It's an accepted practice in today's world. Why is abortion so easily accepted in today's world? Because abortion is actually unnatural, as we discussed. It's a baby is being killed in the womb. Okay, that is very clear. And actually the concept of abortion, medically aided abortion, where you go to a clinic or a hospital, the doctor actually helps you to abort your fetus. This is not, this is quite a new practice, less than 100 years old. Medically aided abortions are less than 100 years old. It's a product of, recent times where, because of too much free mixing between men and women. So these things have come out. So, but it's not really, it wasn't a very prevalent practice even, 50, 60 years ago. But what is the reason why now we have become so accepting of abortion? We don't think so much about it. Okay, we don't think it's such a big thing or such a bad thing. Why is it that women who undergo abortion, are willing to do it? Why they feel that there's nothing wrong with it? And why is society also undergoing? Why is society also so accepting of abortion as in general? The reason behind this is the concept of impersonalism. Concept of impersonalism. What do I mean by that? Abortion now is much more accepted and much, the cases are much more prevalent. More and more abortions are being done because we as a species, human beings, we have started to see everything in existence as being simply a combination of matter. Okay, that means we see that the world in creation is a combination of elements, it's a combination of carbon, it's a combination of material elements that have come together to form something. Okay, it's a combination of dull and lifeless matter. We think of people in the same way. We think of people in the same way, that they are just a combination of chemicals. Because, you see, if we see people, if we see another human being as an actual human being, it will be very difficult for us to cause any harm to that person, because we see that person as a person. Let me explain this a little bit, okay? So the point I'm making here is that we have become more and more impersonal, okay? As in this case, as I mentioned earlier, even the fetus in the womb is referred to as tissue, right? As some organic tissue. We don't call it a baby, we call it some organic tissue. This is one example of impersonalism, how we depersonalize the human being. Because when we depersonalize something, it becomes easier for us to exploit that entity. Okay, now this historically, this depersonalization began with nature, began with Mother Nature. Okay, before nature can be conquered and exploited, we had to depersonalize nature first. You see, in ancient times, Earth was known as Mother Earth, Mother Earth, because she sustains us. All right, in Vedic culture also, she's known as Bhumi Devi, right? Bhumi Devi, she's a person, she's a mother who nurtures us. So this is how we would refer to Mother Earth. And no one would dream of violating or exploiting your own mother, right? But over the years, because of this impersonalistic philosophy, we have depersonalized Mother Earth as a collection of material elements, carbon, etc. And by doing this, now then it is possible for us as human beings to exercise our domination and control over nature. What is the result of this? Climate change, pollution of our earth, our soil, our waters, our air, depletion of the ozone layer. All these things have happened in the last 50 to 60 years. All these things have spiked exponentially. Okay, why? Because our mentality towards earth has changed. It's very, very impersonal now. Okay, so the same thing is happening with human beings. Human life itself is now becoming more and more impersonal. We depersonalize nature, then we depersonalize God himself. Okay, we said God is not a person, just some energy or something, right? Or some white light. And then now we are busy depersonalizing ourselves. This is the result. A result of this depersonalization is abortion. Because you cannot kill something or someone that you have a personal concept about. Because we see the fetus as something impersonal, we depersonalize the fetus. Therefore, we are willing to go through the act of killing an unborn child. Because it's just tissue. It's just some muscular tissue. That's all. Okay. So now to justify that, we make it we call the child as tissue. But if we look at it, okay, this organic tissue, if the fetus in the womb is tissue, then you and I, we are also made of the same tissue, right? Are we not? Yes, aren't we all made of the same tissue? The tissue that the fetus is made
Exactly.
of.
Yes.
Exactly same.
We are all made of the same tissue. Okay, so that means if we choose to kill somebody else, now we can classify them as just organic tissue, and then we can justify that our killing because they are just tissue anyway. Right? Can we do that? Where do we stop this? Where do we draw the line? Can we now say that if society doesn't want to support old people anymore because they are a burden on society, so we just label them as old tissue and then we get rid of them? Or if there are people who are drug addicts who are contributing, causing problems in society, we get rid of them because they are just tissue, right? So where do we draw the line? So this is the problem. Okay, we are depersonalizing anything, and before we can do anything about this impersonal philosophy, we have to understand its cause, because depersonalization is necessary for us to dominate over others. Because if I'm a conscious living entity, and if I recognize that Yachna is a conscious living entity, then I cannot think of doing any harm to her because she's a person. She's a person. I have a relationship with her. She's a person, a living entity like me. So automatically there is respect, and there is respect for her right to live, for her right to exist as an individual, just as I want to have a right to live as an individual. But if I want to dominate over someone else, if I want to use that person as an instrument to further my own means, then I need to depersonalize that person. Then the person becomes a tool to be manipulated and controlled by me. Okay, This is the, a good example is women who are exploited by men. One of the main reasons is because the men don't see them as, individuals who have a right, and who have feelings, and who have their own consciousness and their own individuality. But many men see women as an object for satisfying their own enjoyment, their own senses, right? So you depersonalize the person in that way. The person becomes an impersonal, it's not an in-person anymore. It's an impersonal tool that I can use for my own enjoyment. So we must abandon this impersonalistic view of the world. We must abandon this, because this kind of mentality abortion is a direct result of this kind of mentality. If we see the fetus in the womb as a child, as a human being, as a living entity who has the right to live, just like I do, then we will not, there's no question of abortion. But because we depersonalize everything, this philosophy of impersonalism is very prevalent in our world today. We are becoming increasingly impersonal in all our interactions. Now we're talking about impersonalism in relation to abortion today. But if we just take a, pause for a moment and just look at our own lives, we can see how much impersonalism is creeping into our life, every area of our lives. One big problem, one big cause of impersonalism is the cell phone. Okay, we think that we are more connected to each other through the cell phone, but are we really? Are we really? Nowadays, it's, yeah, anyway, that's a whole different topic by itself. But I think we can understand that increasingly in our lives, impersonalism is creeping in more and more and more. And the more we allow it to creep in, the easier it becomes for us to exploit and dominate over others. The easier it becomes, because we don't see other people now as human beings anymore. We see them as tools for us to achieve means in some way. Okay, so we must become free from this mentality of exploitation, of using others for our own interests. And I have to say that for this, in order to be able to overcome this impersonalism, this cannot be legislated. It's not some, it is not some government law which can be enforced to overcome this mentality. Okay, it cannot be done through constitutional amendments or legislation or some kind of superficial measures. No, it has to come from spirituality. It has to come from spiritual practice, from understanding the oneness of all human beings, the sanctity of life, the right of all living entities to live, whether it's a fetus in the womb or whether it's an old person in the nursing home. Every individual has the right to life, has the right to live. And this respect we must bring back into our consciousness, into our thinking, into society. This respect must be brought back. And this, as I said, it cannot be legislated. It can only be brought about through spirituality. Through sadhana, through spiritual practice, we can bring this back. And, I cannot conclude without speaking about bhakti yoga, because bhakti yoga is the best possible method to reawaken this consciousness within us. Because bhakti yoga, the yoga of devotion, is all about personalism. It's all about personal interaction between us and the divine, between us and each other. Okay, so when we have this concept of personalism in all our interactions, automatically it brings with it respect for someone else, consideration for someone else, not wanting to impose our own ideas and thoughts and feelings, but, understanding that everybody has the right to their feelings, their opinions, their right to live, etc. This can only be brought about through spirituality. And, bhakti yoga is the best way to do this. There's so much more we can say, but I just, in the interest of time, I'm going to stop here and maybe open up for some questions or comments. I just want to end by saying that on my side, I just want to end by saying that it's very clear, the Shastras, Vedic culture is very clear on the topic of abortion. Oh, sorry. I think Siri just came up and asked me something, so sorry about that. I was saying that Vedic culture is very clear on this topic of abortion, that abortion is basically infanticide. It is murder, okay? Because the child has life. Fetus in the womb has life from the moment of conception. So it is wrong. It is, we are actually taking the life of an unborn child. And Vedas are also very clear in telling us that if we engage in such an activity, there will be karmic reactions. There's no escaping that. There will be karmic reaction. And so by understanding at least these 2 points, we can start to look at this whole topic of abortion from a different angle, from a different perspective, and deal with the underlying causes as we talked about earlier, which is the erosion of our values and unregulated sex life, which is rampant in the world today, and this concept of impersonalism. We depersonalize everything, and therefore we become desensitized to suffering of others, or it becomes second nature for us, or we don't think twice about when we see that a life is being taken. It's like you watch TV. I'm sure you've had this experience. We've all been watching TV for many years, right? Many years. And in the movies, oftentimes you see somebody being shot, okay, being killed by by being shot to death or being killed in violence. We see so much violence on the television, in the movies, on the TV shows. Do we realize that after a while, the more you keep watching this, the more you keep watching this, the more you keep watching the violence, after some time we become desensitized to it? Because it means when we first see it, it's shocking to us. Oh, the person has been killed in this way, like this. But as you keep on watching over some years, you see the same thing, but you don't have the same reaction anymore to the killing, because now you have become desensitized to what has happened. So this is the point I'm making. This is how our society is evolving. We are becoming impersonal and desensitized to all the things that are happening. So this can only be changed through spirituality. Okay, I'm gonna stop here and I'm gonna ask if there are any questions or any comments or anything anyone would like to share. I don't promise answers, but I will do my best to try and.
No, it was really an eye-opener session for me, because we were just listening. The initial 3 months are like soul doesn't go there. It is okay to be aborted and everything, but you have touched a very right cause. You have actually mentioned this thing, that how can something grow if it doesn't have life? So even if we see a plant, just because it has a life, so it grows. Okay. If I take a pen, it doesn't have life, so it doesn't grow.
Exactly.
A very valid point you have touched. So I can say it was really an eye-opener session for me, truly, for maybe all of us. Another thing is, which I like, these 2 points I have noted down, and then you all can share definitely your views. Second point you have mentioned very rightly is, people talk about this particular point, abortion, but no one is even trying to find out the root cause, going there and eliminating that. But you have actually mentioned it properly. Hopefully, many people who have joined and others who will be watching it on the YouTube, maybe they can learn, understand. And I think this message need to be spread. It's a wonderful message, and it should be spread all over the world, basically. So thank you so much, Shri Radhika ji. And now all of
Thank you, Shakuntalaji, for sharing your thoughts on this. Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to share something or raise a question?
Yeah,
Because
I
it's a-
want to share. Yeah, I really appreciate you sending me Dr. Sharma sent me the link for this talk, because I'm really glad someone brought up this topic, because I talked to Dr. Sharma before. I said actually a few weeks ago I had this discussion with a friend. She's a very well educated and works at investment banks and a few years older than me. And actually, she was really shocked when I said I'm pro-life, I'm against abortion, because we discussed about this, of course, a new abortion regulation in US. I said I'm actually against abortion. She was very surprised. She yeah, she was educate. She lived a very long time in Canada, and then we went into details. I said, of course, because from if we discuss the beginning of life, there will be a disagreement upon that, and then her arguing point is, oh, how about the people, the women, unfortunate women who are raped or incest? So that's one of the main argument modern women proposed. And what after that discussion, what I find interesting is, because our education system, unless your family has certain religious or spiritual background, whether abortion was taken as legit, without doubt, it's the right way to do if a woman doesn't want a child or have any circumstances unable to continue the pregnancy. So I think this can at least, I think this kind of discussion should be brought up and discussed within whether or not you are spiritual, religious or not, because
Yes.
after all, it's about the life. And also motherhood is important to each woman, regardless you're having children or not, because it's worth discussing, right? Yeah, so I'm really glad you all brought up this topic, and it's very informative, and I really enjoyed it and I learned a
Thank
lot.
you. Thank you, Frank. Thank you very much for sharing that. And yes, I did bring in some topics, from spirituality, but you're absolutely right. Regardless of whether we have any spiritual background or any religion that we follow or not, the topic of abortion is applicable to all of us. And, therefore, it is something that is worth discussing, no matter what our backgrounds are. And of course, everyone is entitled to their opinions, and everyone will have a different view. But I think we should, I think there are certain things that we need to be able to discuss, not just to get a point across or to prove that I'm right or you're wrong, or you're right and I'm wrong or something, but just for the betterment of society itself, just for the betterment of society itself. Because it is, as I said earlier, right now, all the discussion is centered around whether abortion is right or wrong. And in fact, we're talking about how to do abortion in a more fair way, in a more legal way. That's where the discussion is centered now. All the debates that's going on in the US now is whether, mostly how to legalize it or whether it should be banned. That's a general discussion. But as I pointed out, the more important topic of discussion for me is what is causing this? Why is abortion so rampant in society today? That is where we are missing the plot. We're missing the plot. And it's always, when we see any issue that's come up, it's really to have just a discussion about the problem itself is not going to help unless we address, the reasons that have led to that situation in this, in the first place right now. Like now we're talking about climate change and all these things. Yes, we have to do something to reverse climate change, but we also need to look at how we got to this point of climate change. So without addressing that underlying cause, we are not going to get very far with reversing climate change. So it's the same way, we have to talk about other things connected. When we talk about abortion, we can't just talk about it in isolation. We have to talk about all the other things that are leading up to it. And this is a discussion, it's the discussion with which most people are not having. Most people are having a discussion about abortion itself, but not the other things that are leading up to it. And this is what I'm trying to highlight in my talk today. It's important that we understand what has led us to this point where we are. Because it's a fact, that this depersonalization or this concept of impersonalism is creeping into every aspect of our lives, and it's making us more and more impersonal in our dealings with each other. And that's a dangerous trend. That's a very dangerous trend, so yeah, so there's so much we can discuss, but in the interest of time, we have to limit ourselves. But thank you very much, Fang, for sharing that. Thank you very much. I look forward to meeting you at the temple this Sunday in person. Thank you.
I think Aditi wants to ask something.
Aditi has a question.
Hi. Yeah. Okay, just let me start my video. Yeah, hi. So
Hi.
my question is like, I mean, it's amazing actually, the concepts you've given. So it was actually really surprising for me, because even I was under the impression that at least minimum 1 month, 2 months, and sometimes they say even the soul comes in the very last moment. So at the level of the conception, if the soul is coming, so my question is, I mean, it's a little unbelievable for me. That my question is, like there is a sexual activity, and there are people like, I mean, if you say if you have to regulate the sexual activity, I'm talking about the married people. I'm not talking about the, not so moral and immoral, all those things. So talking about the married people. Like for example, my mother, she conceived, but the kind of decision she had, okay, my child is in 10th, I can't afford to do all of this, and she bought it. Or for example, like we use like contraceptives. So are we saying that we are stopping, and again, it should be regulated, we should not have been done? So I'm talking about the married people, because this is a normal activity.
Yes. So you're talking about the use of contraceptives in order to prevent pregnancies? Is that what your question is?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, good question. Sorry, I didn't get your name. Aditi, is it? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for raising that question. So our Vedic Shastras are very clear on this, actually. And okay, you may not like the answer, but let me quote what the Shastra says, and let me try and explain it a little bit more. Basically, our Shastra, not just Vedic Shastra for that matter, if you look at many Shastras, many spiritual traditions around the world, the act of sexual union is permitted only for procreation, means only for the reason of conceiving children. That's the only reason, that's the only time that sexual union is permitted. This is true in most traditions, spiritual traditions of the world, not just Vedic culture. This is how spirituality recommends that we regulate our sexual activity. Again, I'm also talking about within the confines of marriage, okay, within a married relationship. But even within a married relationship, even there also, sexual activity is supposed to be regulated. Means it's not that getting married is now not a license for sexual enjoyment. Okay. Now, what is the reason why it is given like this? One would think that, okay, it's understandable that one shouldn't indulge in sex if one is not married or anything, but within the confines of marriage, even then we are saying that sexual activity has to be regulated. That's a little bit mind-boggling for many people. So what is the reason in spirituality? Why are we told that even within marriage, one should engage in sexual activity only for the reason of procreation, which is to conceive children? the life force, the vital life force in a man and woman, okay, is contained within the vital fluid of the man and woman. So everything that we do, all the food that we eat, all the nourishment that we take and everything, okay, it's supposed to give us good health and everything. But the essence of the well-being, the essence of the health of the individual is in the vital fluid of the man and woman. So that means in the case of man, it is in the semen. And in the case of the woman, it is in the ovum. This is the essence of all the, what's the word in Hindi? Tejas, I think. What do you call Hindi? Tejas, the vitality. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't, what's the English word for Tejas?
Ojas.
Ojas, but what's the English word for it? Ojas is the
Vitality.
Vitality, right? The vitality of the individual. It's called ojas. And in men, it's the semen. In women, it's the ova. Excuse me. Now, this vital fluid, which comes into play during sexual intercourse, this vital fluid, we are meant to conserve this fluid. We are meant to conserve this fluid because it's the essence of the vitality of every individual, both the men and women, okay? This vital fluid is supposed to be conserved within the body because this vital fluid, when it is conserved, it rises up, rises up to the crown chakra. It rises upward and it gives us sharp intellect, gives us good health physically. It gives us sharp intellect mentally, emotionally makes us very well balanced. And therefore we become the best, we are able to realize the best potential of ourselves. We can realize our potential to the fullest. This is the reason why this vital fluid is meant to be conserved. That means that even within marriage, one doesn't engage in sexual activity freely, because when you engage in sexual activity, you lose this fluid, right? The fluid is lost in the sexual activity. Both men and women, they emit this fluid when they engage in sexual activity. So that ojas, that vitality of the person, of the individual is lost every time we engage in sexual activity. This is not a religious thing. This is scientifically proven. This is a scientific thing that when we engage in sexual activity, we lose that vital fluid every time we do it. So in spirituality recognizes, Vedic culture recognizes that this vital fluid is what enhances the ojas, enhances our effulgence, our sharp intellect, and our good health. All this is maintained through this vital fluid, by conserving this vital fluid. So for this reason, we are supposed to conserve this vital fluid, and therefore, even within marriage, spirituality tells us, Vedas tell us that sex life, even within marriage, should be regulated, meaning that it should be only for procreation, for conceiving children. Now, how many of us can actually follow this? That's a different matter. Okay, how many of us can actually follow this? That's a different matter. That's a different topic for discussion. But to answer your question, Aditi, yes, even within the confines of marriage, we are supposed to actually regulate our sexual union also. And the reason, this is one of the main reasons, because it is the vital fluid has to be conserved. And when the vital fluid is conserved, that means unnecessarily, the couple doesn't engage in sexual activity, so the fluid is not lost. When you conserve that vital fluid, it becomes, the more you conserve it, the stronger it becomes, the stronger the vital fluid becomes. And then when the couple actually want to have a child, actually want to conceive, and then they engage in sexual activity, then at that point, they're both, the husband and wife's vital fluid is so strong. It contains all that essence of the both individuals, full of strength that vital fluid is. When that comes together, then the child that is conceived becomes of best quality. I don't know what other word to use, but the child that is conceived becomes, of best quality on all levels: physically healthy, mentally strong, sharp intellect, emotionally stable, and then becomes a useful person in society. Can actually contribute to society, because when the child is born, already the child is coming with this kind of tejas into this world, this kind of, full of this vitality to the world. So when the Shastras tell us that, sex within married life is only for procreation and all that, in today's world, we may think that this is, out of date, or this is not applicable, or it's just unreasonable. But we say that because we are not able to practice it ourselves in today's world. So we say, that, oh, this is not practical. No, it's very practical, because there's a good reason behind it. We don't understand the reason. That's one thing. So we may say that, okay, this is not practical. This cannot be applied in today's world. And one reason is we don't understand the reason. Another reason is, even if we understand it, we ourselves may not be able to put it into practice. Okay, so then we say, okay, I can't follow these things and all that. But again, there are many components to this, and we can discuss each one, but it's another topic for discussion. But Aditya, I don't know if I answered your question exactly what you asked. I was just trying to, as I said, there are different components to it. But in a nutshell, even within the confines of marriage, of a marital relationship, yes, the couple is supposed to also regulate their sexual activity. And the reason is for this, that when they actually do conceive a child, by conserving the vital fluid, the man and the woman will produce such, vital fluid that is so full of vigor and so potent that when it comes together, the child that is conceived will be of the highest quality. This is the reasoning behind it. It's not just to simply, curtail sexual activity or anything like this, because it's a fact. The vital fluid is the essence of the individual. And this, again, as I said, is scientifically proven. The more we engage in sexual activity, the more a man loses his semen, the weaker he becomes. This is all scientifically accepted now. This is not, just some old wives' tale or anything like this.
Yes, ma'am, makes sense, because I had a miscarriage some time back, and in order to conceive, the doctor advised that, once in alternate day we should try, not daily. So I guess that's the reason behind it. So definitely it's time.
Yes. Okay. Well, I hope you conceive soon.
Yes, ma'am. I have 2 healthy kids now.
Very good. That's good to hear. Good to hear. Thank you for your question, Aditi. Thank you.
Hello, ma'am. Ma'am, further to Aditi's question only, the way you've explained that, obviously abortion is not the right thing. And the sexual act is basically for procreation. So people who use contraceptives or they have protected sex, then is that also not the right thing to do?
That's right. It's not the right thing to do.
Okay.
Okay, contraception, this contraceptive means and everything, these are all, again, modern inventions. Contraceptives are basically modern inventions to allow people to indulge in sexual activity without the responsibility that goes, along with it, of, conceiving a child or anything like this. So contraceptives are, again, it's a modern invention in order to basically allow people to engage in sexual activity. In ancient times, society was such that contraception, their form of contraception was not engaging in sexual activity. Basically, there was no sexual union. Unless the child, they wanted a child, there's no sexual union. So there was no reason or need for contraception or anything like this. And in ancient times, they had this knowledge of when was the right time to conceive the child. astrologically, and also in terms of the health of the individual. Now we say that, okay, the doctors tell us to check when you're ovulating and when are the days to try and all this. Yeah, this is modern speak, okay, modern scientific speak. But, this is already mentioned in our Shastras long time ago, that a woman's, when is a woman's most fertile period and everything, when the woman should try, when the woman shouldn't try, when is the man, when the man should, and even, as far as what the man and woman can do in order to determine the sex of the unborn baby. Those things are also all given in our Shastras, but we have lost this knowledge now. We have lost this, So, but coming back to your question, Talwarji, yes, it is, contraceptives are again a new invention. It's a new invention, and it is not, Shastras are very clear on this. Our Shastras are very clear on this. If you don't want to have a child, don't engage in sexual activity. And again, as I said, one of the main reasons is this, to conserve the vital fluid, both for the health of the parents and for the health of the forthcoming child when they actually do want to conceive. Is that
Right.
okay?
Yeah, got it. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for asking the question. Thank you. Varsha-ji?
Varsha-ji, you have to unmute.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much, Radhika ji. It was a wonderful talk, very informative, and it was really an eye-opener. It was really an eye-opener. And you very well said that Krishna has a plan for every soul. Who are we? We are not the providers. And we don't have to worry about how the child will be raised. And we have no right to take away anyone's life.
Thank you for your kind words. You're too kind. Thank you.
Really
Yoga
very-
Kshemam Vahamyam.
Yes.
Yoga Kshemam Vahamyam.
So
Yes.
he takes care of every soul. We don't have to worry.
Exactly. Yes.
Everyone comes into this life when it's meant to.
Every soul has his individual journey to make.
And he brings his own destiny.
He brings his own destiny. We are simply the instruments in God's hands to do something. What we call our children, our husband, our this, our that, none of them are ours. They all belong to God. And they have been entrusted to us in this lifetime for us to, serve them. As instruments of God, so they come and we are just instruments. We're just helping them carry out whatever they are meant to go through. But we make the mistake of thinking that we are maintaining, we have to raise this child, we have to do this, we have to do that. So yes, this is an important point to remember. Every child comes with his own predetermined karma and path and journey in life, so
that's right. So thank you very much. And it was really, really wonderful having you. And we would like to have you come again with some really interesting topics. I mean, we are open to, if you can, whatever you would like to talk about, we are open to it. Please come again.
thank you very
Ma'am,
much.
one more small question, ma'am, I have posted in the chat room, ma'am. Does it affect the karma if we are using contraceptives, even if it's a little bit also?
Yes, it does. Does it affect karma if we use contraceptives? Yes, because as I said, contraceptives are not, they are only meant, as I said, they are recent invention just to allow us to engage in sexual activity without, any adverse outcome, without the responsibility of actually, conceiving and raising a child. So contraceptives are not right. They are not the right thing to do. So yes, there will be karma for that. There will be karma for that. So these are, I understand that some of these questions and some of these answers that I'm giving can be a bit hard to swallow for a lot of us in today's world, okay? Because contraceptives are very commonly used, and a lot of people think of contraceptives as responsible sex, actually. because you don't want to end up with the unwanted pregnancy or carry a child that you don't want to have. So a lot of people look at contraceptives as responsible sex. But I think this is also a very modern, recently evolved kind of thinking, because there is, as human beings, we come up with a lot of things to justify what we want to do. We want to do something, so we come up with different ways to justify that. We're very good at that as human beings. But I can't tell. I'm not going to tell you something. I can't say something to make everyone feel good if it's not true. Okay, I would be irresponsible. I have to say what it says, regardless of whether it sounds good or it's palatable to everyone or not. And on this point, it's very clear. Engaging in unrestricted sexual activity, even with the use of contraceptives, it's against the laws of nature. It's against the laws that have been ordained for us. So I think the challenge for us is to try and see how much of this we can follow, given the fact that we are living in Kali Yuga, and there are a lot of other, lot of things that we need to deal with. So that's a challenge for us. And I have to say, it's doable. It's not something that's impossible. It's doable. I know many couples. Okay, I know many people who have a celibate marriage. They're married, but they practice celibacy within marriage. So that means they really do come together, only when they want to have children, then they unite. And this was the norm in ancient times, especially in our Vedic culture. You may know that in traditional families, in one house, the men lived in a separate side of the house, the women lived in a separate side of the house. This was the common thing in Vedic times, and they would come together. Yes, when there was a need for procreation, then they would come together. Otherwise, everybody's carrying out their own duties and living in a joint family and everything. So it was a very different situation at that time. Today, we are facing different challenges. And I also want to make a point out that in no way am I passing judgment on anyone. Okay, please do not think like that in any way. That I'm not passing judgment on anyone. This is an individual choice that every one of us has to make, because whatever choices we make individually, we are going to have to face the consequences. Okay, so it's a very individual decision and choice that everyone has to make. My duty here as the speaker for today is to present it to you like it is, as it is. It's my duty to tell it to you as it is. I can't sugarcoat it. I can't, tell you something that you like to hear. My duty is to tell you what it is, okay, what the Shastras tell us. How much we accept, how much we follow, that's an individual choice. And we also have to understand that as per the choices we make, we are also responsible for the consequences that we have to face from the choices that we make. Okay. Is that all right?
So, Radhika ji, I just want to ask, I'm just curious to know, is there no exception or no, under any circumstances it is given that, okay, you can go for it, like in our Shastras, there is no condition, not even a single condition that a person can go for abortion, or it's like just a blanket rule, absolutely no, under no circumstances you can go for it, or are there any exceptions, if you know?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm
Okay.
aware of that there are any exceptions to the rule. Vinodji, I'm going to call my helpline here. Vinodji, is there any
Yeah.
circumstances that you're aware of where abortion is allowed in the Shastras?
No, nothing. No such thing is mentioned in any
Yeah.
of the Shastras as far as my knowledge is concerned.
Mhm.
And I would also like to speak about Aditi's point about contraceptive, whether there is any karma involved or not. If we try to understand at a deeper level, at the time of emission of the vital fluid from male's body, millions and millions of sperms are released. Now, if contraceptive is used, that means the person is depriving these sperms from getting a life by uniting, by coming in contact with the egg in the female body. So that kind of deprivation, which is forced upon intentionally, unintentionally, knowingly, unknowingly, that's a different matter. But the deprivation is there. No person is depriving. So that karma, the person, whoever is responsible for depriving the sperms to get alive, that person will suffer later on. So karma is definitely involved there. The karmic reaction is going to be there. So whether we accept it or not, the nature's law will work.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Vinod Prabhu. Yes. So, Yachnaji, as far as we are...
Ma'am, can I further just ask one more thing that Sir just mentioned, that, you know, the karma is involved. So say if it's a married couple and, you know, one of the, you know, spouse is not ready to have a child. And so finally, you know, they decide that, okay, you know, they will use a contraceptive or a protection. So in that case, the karma goes for both, or is it actually the person who is restricting it, who's not wanting to have it? So, I mean, would it be for one person or would it be for both of them as a couple?
For both.
For both. Okay.
Yes. It's not only in the act of sexual union, like the case that you mentioned, one partner wants to have a child, the other one doesn't want to, so contraception is used. Once you get married, okay, once we are married, a lot of the actions of one spouse will be, the karmic reaction will affect both of them, not just in the act of conception, but also in many other areas. Once people are married, then once a man and woman are married, their karma is bound together. There's individual karma, and then there's also combined karma as spouse, as husband and wife.
They're considered as unit.
Yeah, they're considered as one unit.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks. Thanks for clarifying.
Not at all. It's okay. Okay, Varshaji, shall we turn it over to you?
Yeah, I think if there are no other questions, we can end the session here. And once again, thank you very much, Radhika ji and Sharma ji. We would like to see your face first. You know, we haven't seen your face today, Vinod ji. We would like to see you. Sharma ji, are you there? Okay, now Sharma ji is here. Yeah, you're on mute.
Hey, mute.
You're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah. Habitual, no? To be muted.
So thank you very much. It was a very insightful session and a lot of wisdom of the Vedas. What say Yachna and Shakuntala ji?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, indeed.
As I said, eye-opener. And we were living in a myth that the life comes afterwards. So, and she has proved it also. So I think it was really an eye-opener and a wonderful, wonderful session. And you please keep coming and keep bringing such beautiful, interesting topics and just keep enlightening us like this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your kind words, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to share and to speak. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Varsha ji.